I'm here to tender my apology that as a member of my generation, I take the responsibility of at least submitting an apology to you because we messed up with this planet. So this is the stage of water world over. And the petroleum industry of the world put together is a peanut before water trading industry. And that has created a fractured society. That a boy from IIT or NIT, if scores full 10, is called a genius. And a guy scoring the same amount of score, 10 out of 10, is called a dog. And that is how Slumdog Millionaire, Gandhi Nale Ka Kutta. And we were happy celebrating Oscar. How it has fractured and separated the society. And that brings into question the entire urban planning. Water creates two phases of our society, which is called civil engineering, which derives its origin from the word civic. And how civilized we are. We have a glamorous world going up and non-glamorous world going down, being neglected. Majority of the public belongs to that. But we all have an addiction for commerce. We chase glamour world. And that glamour world can be politics, wars, sports, films. War is a business. In name of world peace, we are manufacturing arms to destroy the planet, not mankind. And the most unglamorous, non-funding, non-attention seeking subject is sewage science. And if we cannot take care of sewage science, the whole world can come to a stop. We have seen that in last 3 years. Now, what is sewage science? It is NIMBY, not in my backyard, or it has two phases. One is public health. And this public health status has been given by medical fraternity, not civil engineers, not design schools, not architecture, and not even management schools. But the most important part of sewage science is climate health. Sewage science is a climate related subject. But this is an area where academia, engineering, design schools, and management schools should intervene. And in my view, they have not. And that is why we have pandemics over 5,000 years. Now, pandemics have two phases. One is managed by the medical science, and they have done it exceedingly well. But the second part is that pandemics do not appear. That falls under civil engineering by managing water, wastewater, and pathogen control. Now, wastewater, water, etc., wastewater is now called used water. The world has decided to not to use waste because there is nothing waste in this, in the nature. Nature follows a regenerative path. Any discard of phase 1 is raw material of phase 2. Discard of that is raw material for, say, phase 3, etc. And the reject of the last phase is again the raw material of the stage 1. On the left, we have carbon dioxide, H2O, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen. From minerals, we have molecules of CN, glucose, etc., etc. When glucose breaks down, this higher molecules break down, we have minerals. So, minerals to molecules and back. But during the breakdown of higher compounds, we have energy released. We call it biological energy, which keeps the life going and staying within these resources. No borrowing, no disposal. That is sustainable development. So I have taken the brief history of septic tank. And Calcutta, if you read Greening the Built Up, the book Greening the Built Up by two British authors, and they held Calcutta as one of the best cities in the world who could manage their sewage exceedingly well. Every house in the backyard had a pond. Well, we'll come to it later some other time. The Frenchman, Jean-Louis Moraz, in 1860 built a cement reservoir to store his waste. 10 years later, when he went to empty the tank, he discovered that it was nearly empty, except for a small amount of wastewater scum. And the modern septic tank was born. And you are familiar with the term RNA and DNA. Tell me if you have something to ask. When the two vertical strands separate, the steps are being synthesized to fill the gap. Or there can be a new strand coming up also. We call it DNA and RNA. The two longitudinal members, they are sugar and phosphate and sugar and phosphate and sugar and phosphate. And the steps between the two long members, making the ladder. They are nitrogenous bases, and you rightly said, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. In DNA and RNA, thymine is replaced by uracil. We'll not go into that, but they are all NBs. You can see that. Now in RNA, DNA, can you see what are these members? Anybody? This is a pentose sugar, we call it ribose. And therefore, RNA derives its name, ribonucleic acid. And the oxygen as a reactive oxygen species was born like this in the prebiotic world. That was 4 billion years ago. O goes with O. O does not go with carbon or hydrogen or sugar or nitrogen or anything. So the atmospheric oxygen came on this planet 2.3 billion years ago. First half of the world was anoxic. But the reactive oxygen molecule as a radical available was this. So first RNA came, it lost its one oxygen, and we have DNA. And in all later organisms, DNA took over is the most stable hereditary material because RNA is very notorious and reactive. It's most unstable molecule. So oxygen was born like this. And that is how the term aerobic finds it confusion. How the cycle goes. The soil gives us crop. Crop gives us food. Food gives us nutrition. It produces feces. And the rest of the nutrient should go to soil. Because the nutritional value of food and feces is same. But before the feces go back to the soil or the nutrient go back to the soil, the pathogen which are a product of our colon, they are manufactured in the colon. They are friendly sometimes in our body. Some of them are friendly in the soil also. But when they are outside the familiar host, they turn into a pathogen. Suppose if we take 100 units of nutrients as food, 60 units are absorbed by our body. So 60 minus 100 is 40. But why body accepts only 60? Because body loses 60. Whatever store that I have in my body, a young, of course, this is only after 18 or 20 years of age when a full grown body, human body is formed. Till then, the nutrient intake is more because body has to build more muscle and bone, etc. Now, 40 units pass through the gut unaltered. They are joined by 60 from the body. So the feces nutrient load is 100. What happens? The nutrients go to STP, SCP where sludge and liquid are separated. Liquid goes to river. Sometimes sludge also goes to river. River goes to sea. So the soil is losing nutrient every year. This bacteria and archaea appeared, first archaea came 4 billion years ago. In this advanced cellular structure appeared 8 billion years. This is like amoeba, paramecium, whatever you are familiar with. I'm not talking about higher organisms, but these two have different internal structure. And all internal structure differentiation must be understood before we go to the molecules and minerals that make them. Closing the loop, nature is regenerative, cyclic. It is never linear because linear path has a beginning and an end. Once a path is over and we reach the end, where would the second cycle come from? So all the minerals and elements and nutrients that we mentioned earlier, magnesium and cobalt and iron and copper and etc. They give us crop. Crop gives us food. Food nourishes human body, which produces excreta. And what is excreta? It is pathogen from the gut and it should be eliminated. And the rest of the inorganic nutrient should go back to the soil. Civilization appeared along the river, and river was the seat of civilization. It is only partly true, but the science behind it is different. All the rivers had floodplains. And from the hills, whatever the minerals the rivers used to bring along with the flow, the river had a vertical flow along the hillside. It was so much high in velocity, nothing could settle down. On the contrary, it eroded a lot of soil. We have more of landslide and all that because the hills have become porous. The rainwater goes there. And then when it comes down, all that soil enters the river and enters the floodplains, the low level area where the velocity is less, soil settle down in the floodplains. Now, it was the floodplain that was the seat of civilization. It was the most productive part of the soil, productive part of the planet. And that gave us food. So we'll have to rewrite our curriculum. Agriculture and sanitations are like two sides of the same coin. Engineers are taught sanitation, and agricultural scientists do not include sanitation in their courses. I tell you, phosphate rock we are mining, in which a very high energy intensive process. Only 6 to 8% of that phosphate goes to the fertilizer complex. And still a smaller portion reaches the farm as fertilizer. Not sustainable. And as the statistics show, the phosphate rock will not last for more than 60 to maximum 100 years from now, if climate behaves well. We prefer to release listening to the bird songs, enjoying the fragrance of bushes and flowers, and seeing the butterfly flying around. That was their concept of toilet. But Bill Clinton insisted. He said, no, we'll give you all that, sir. We don't have fund, the fellow says. Bill Clinton says, we will give you. We'll give you technology and all that. Then the gentleman ran out of his patience, his modesty. He says, sir, if you really want to help my country, give us your poop. Entire European poop should be sent to Haiti, because it is your poop that will regenerate my soil, not your money. And today, UK is importing 3,000 tons of poop from Netherlands every year. This is today's. And Haiti is the only case in the human civilization which paid back last penny of compensation, including interest, to the French government when they left Haiti. But give me your poop, that will regenerate my soil, not your money. And which is the most sophisticated anaerobic digester the nature has ever created after millions and millions of years. And those bacteria in my colon are my partners. They are sustaining us. And they came long, long ago. We came only 500,000 years ago. So whenever we think of a septic tank or sewage treatment plant, it should behave or provide. It should become an extension of human colon so that unfinished process can continue there. Colon is a tube. If you take a transverse section, it is a circular cross section. We made tanks because bricks know only right angle. So from the center, if you see this distance is less than this distance. Entire and septic tank should take, or only toilet waste should be sent to septic tank, not your bath water, not your kitchen waste. You see, engineering tried to ease out things, and through one common pipe, they flushed everything. It is kitchen waste or bath waste or whatever. You have boiled potatoes at 100 plus degrees centigrade, which is the purest form of water, even if it contains some soil particle of the potato skin, but it is pathogen free. Why do you want to mix it with colon discharge? You see, we are designing the whole system which will make the job difficult. I want to tell you about the chemistry and the microbes and genomic principles, how the genes and the life and enzymes and microbial secretions behave. Solid or liquid waste, the chemistry and the genomic principles are the same. Suppose if you have a newspaper, 10 ton of newspaper or 15 ton of vegetable waste left to a landfill, but landfill is a reactor. Delhi landfill heap is 65 meter and Qutub Minar is 73 meter, only 8 meters left. Maybe someday that heap could submerge the Qutub Minar. Now, engineers are talking about refuse-derived fuel, where there is energy input and all that, and the recovery of energy is hardly 6%. And in the process, we have incinerator, compactor, humidifier, transport, shredder, vibrator, crusher, blower, press, heating, sprayer, lighting, atomizer, chemicals, magnet belt, etc. All this is energy input. That is not accounted. And RDF produces 6% of the energy. That is what the data bank. Data make or have a meaning only when they give us a direction. This is concealment. So all acid rains and all that, these are the molluscan shells, which has become membrane thin, transparent. You can see the animal body inside. Entire calcium strength is gone. Ocean homeostasis disturbed. Germany lost 1/3 of its forest during the last few decades of the previous century. That was 1950 to 1980 was an automobile boom in Germany. How much water do we need? Are we penny wise and water foolish? Who irrigates this grass? You can see the grass top is barely an inch or two green, and see the root. This is Shakti Bai. These are the roots of the grass, more than 2.5 feet. Night dew irrigates this lawn, and this is in the desert of Kutch. He is Shakti Bhatt. Of course, this was my accidental finding, but we excavated some soil 3 months before this shot. If you want to use car, you should go for such pervious lawn on which you can drive. This is a drive entry in front of the lawn, and this is the grass. Every drop of water reaches the soil, and between the grid, bottom is soil and exposed to sky.